there is a lot of the typical Grixis control cards hanging out in Adrian's list. He is playing with 3 main deck copies of Funeral Charm. Okay. Funeral Charm is helpful against Affinity because any reasonable 1 mana piece of interaction, you'll take as much of that as you can get, and Funeral Charm kills plenty of threats out of Affinity. But the Waste Not element of the deck does feel a little slow to bring to bear in this kind of matchup. He's playing with Burning Inquiry. That's his major cheat with this card, and then he's got other cards like Funeral Charm, Thoughtseize, Kolaghan's Command, traditional Grixis control cards to pair with it.
Well, Sullivan's going to start by going down to 19 via Polluted Delta. Get a Swamp is round number 1 here from Cincinnati is underway. Your token, it's off the table now.
Yep. Just giving me a little bit of love this morning. Hey, always appreciated.
I bet you do. You guys are both Sullivans after all. And now here's an Inquisition of Kozilek from Adrian. So a Blinkmoth Nexus, an Inkmoth Nexus, Hangerback Walker, 2 copies of Ornithopter, a Springleaf Drum, and a Cranial Plating is the grip here for DeMars.
Hangerback Walker, of course, the card everyone in Magic Origins was talking about when it first came out for modern applications. Now, you can play it in Abzan and in Jund, but this is the deck that people were guessing you would see Hangerback Walker in.
It seems to be a good one here.
Little on the slow side, not as explosive as Arcbound Ravager or Cranial Plating, but definitely helps you beat spot removal.
Hangerback Walker is the card that Sullivan will select. He'll pass the turn back over to DeMars, who's drawn another copy of Hangerback Walker. It's like he didn't discard it all. Blinkmoth Nexus and the Springleaf Drum into 2 copies of Ornithopter, and he will pass the turn back over to Sullivan. Sullivan will take a draw step for the turn. Steam Vents will enter the battlefield untapped. Adrian will have to take 2. So he's down to 17. We'll see if he does have a follow-up or not. He's just going to pass the turn back. Could be representing Counter Magic, Lightning Bolt, a bevy of other things, as DeMars will draw. It looks like an Arcbound Ravager. Inkmoth Nexus is a land for the turn.
Another thing that I like about Hangerback Walker is, in Affinity, it often feels like you have Cranial Plating, you have Arcbound Ravager, and then you have a lot of setup. There's a lot of cards that don't do very much in the absence of one of your payoff cards. Hangerback Walker doesn't necessarily synergize with a lot of your Ornithopter Mebknight type draws, but it's another card that your opponent does have to answer and give you some staying power in the late game.
Looks like DeMars is going to try for a Cranial Plating. That is going to resolve. Now he'll be equipping Ornithopter. Here's an attack. See if Sullivan does have a removal spell or not. Well, sort of. The Cyclonic Rift will delay things.
1 copy in the main.
Sure.
Played a lot of this card when he was playing Blue-White Control in Standard.
Yep, he was a big fan of Cyclonic Rift. Here's a Miko Koro.
Combo with Waste Not.
Okay, okay.
You see, because they discard.
I do. Don't
know if you knew that.
Well, that's why you're here.
That's all the card does.
That's why you're here. Truly a wonderful card. From Kamigawa Block.
Yes.
The Center of the Sea. DeMars will take a draw. We know he's got Cranial Plating over there. Adrian's got a pretty good idea of what he's working with. Doesn't know that he's drawn another copy of Hangerback Walker. And it looks like DeMars has actually picked up a red card. He is playing 4 copies of Galvanic Blast this weekend.
And there are some draws you get like this with Affinity, especially with DeMars having 2 copies of Nexus in play, where Cranial Plating can be very valuable, just wearing out all of Adrian's removal spells. Every threat now needs to be answered, assuming Adrian can't kill the plating itself.
Hangerback Walker is here now. If I'm DeMars, I am curious as to what Sullivan is up to over there.
And I thought that was a very sharp play there by DeMars. With Adrian having 3 mana up, representing Kolaghan's Command, instead of playing the Cranial Plating, which opens DeMars up to shatter your Cranial Plating plus either make you discard a card or kill your Ornithopter, this play makes casting Kolaghan's Command much more awkward. What's Sullivan going to do? You know, kill one of your artifacts in play. None of them seem that critical. Make you discard a card. Okay, DeMars probably has something not very good in his hand.
Yeah. Sullivan just passes the turn back. DeMars will play a copy of Arcbound Ravager. This may be resolving. We'll see.
Some very good synergy between this card and Hangerback Walker, to say the least.
It's not bad.
There's a lot of different things you can do, all of it very powerful.
Yeah. The 2-mana threats in DeMars' deck, Hangerback Walker, Steel Overseer, Arcbound Ravager, and of course Cranial Plating, all busted. Here's a Terminate. DeMars will activate Hangerback Walker, will terminate on the stack. Now Hangerback Walker will die. 2 Thopters will enter the battlefield. Thopters, those are artifacts for Arcbound Ravager.
Yep.
Also flyers to put the counters from Arcbound Ravager onto.
Modular, pretty good with Hangerback Walker.
Boom.
Both sacrificing it and moving on to.
Yeah, we're on point this morning.
Yeah, there's just combos for days here.
Sullivan, all you can do is pass the turn back yet again. DeMars will draw a card, copy of Darksteel Citadel. Artifact land for Arcbound Ravager.
Another combo.
Yeah. Here's cranial plating.
Combo with artifacts.
Gonna equip it on an Ornithopter.
Specifically artifact creatures.
Very true. Very true.
A lot of good synergies
It's
here. I like what I
true.
see out of DeMars.
You know, this is just good deck building.
Yeah.
That's what this is. Now he's gonna attack. Looks to be a good attack. Here's Kolagon's command. This is pretty important for Adrian to have. And this will be a fine turn, but Ravager makes it so it's not anything crazy.
Arcbound Ravager has a very long history of making spot removal much, much worse.
So command's gonna go through 2 modes. One is deal 2 damage to a Thopter. The other is to destroy cranial plating. Ravager's gonna eat both of those. That's why it's got 3 counters now.
And you're seeing that Affinity can be very resilient to spot removal. Look at the cards that Adrian's played thus far. An Inquisition of Kozilek, a Bound Spell, a Terminate, and a Kolagon's command. You would imagine that's a pretty good mixture of cards to have against an artifact creature beatdown deck that's playing with a bunch of cheap stuff. But because of Hangerback Walker and because of Arcbound Ravager, these cards have been very ineffective so far.
Vault Scourge will come down post-combat. And now we're gonna head back Sullivan's way. Have not seen the Waste Not portion of his deck. I don't even know if it's likely that we will.
I don't know if he has it, and I don't think he has time for it regardless.
Yeah. Maybe it's time for another discard spell here for Adrian. He's going to tap a couple of mana. It'll be a Tassiger. And while that is a 2-mana 4/5, that thing is outclassed right now by Arcbound Ravager.
It is trivial for DeMars to sacrifice 1 more artifact and force Adrian's hand, and even in the event that Adrian has some crazy spell to fight the Ravager, well, then those counters just move on to Vault Scourge or Ornithopter or one of the Nexuses, and it's not really an answer.
Galvanic Blast was the draw there for DeMars, so he has 2 of those in hand. DeMars trying to figure out how he wants to navigate through this attack step. Looks like he's going to activate Blinkmoth Nexus, Vault Scourge, Arcbound Ravager, and the Thopter. Everything's coming across except for the Ornithopter. Adrian gonna do a little bit of math, see if he's got any way to kind of work himself out of this situation. If you're DeMars, you're worried about maybe a 1-mana bounce spell like Vapor Snag here, perhaps a card like Dismember and Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, you have to be conscious of the removal. You could be very aggressive here in DeMars' spot and move everything onto the Nexus or one of your other 1-mana creatures, but the game's going very well for him, and I think that he wants to use Ravager as some sort of fail-safe in case Adrian has an unanticipated crazy card. If Adrian's just going to block your Ravager with Tassiger, all right, sack one of your redundant artifacts, pass to him, see what's going on. There's no real rush for DeMars to go for the kill. You would have to put Adrian on a card like Damnation being in his main deck to really want to do anything aggressive with the Ravager.
Well, sacrifice the Darksteel Citadel. Some damage will be exchanged, a little bit of lifelink action here from the Vault Scourge. But nothing too crazy as DeMars will pass priority back. Waiting really for Sullivan to make a move. And DeMars gets to have the ability to play this as kind of cautiously as he'd like to. He's so far ahead, he doesn't have to take any giant risks outside of maybe a card like Damnation that you mentioned.
Yep.
Sullivan down to 4 now. And this is a pretty comfortable spot for DeMars to be in.
And even if Damnation was in the equation, with DeMars having Galvanic Blast in his hand, even that's not an out.
Sullivan with the Swamp. That's land number 4. A little late to the party. They'll just have to pass the turn back. DeMars will play a Galvanic Blast on the end step. It has plenty of Metalcraft, and that is going to do it. So, Brian DeMars does win game number 1 here over Adrian Sullivan. Affinity very quickly up a game over the Grixis Waste Not Brew. that Sullivan's brought to the table. So now I get to ask you, what 15 cards is Adrian working with in the sideboard?
Well, he definitely respects the affinity matchup. I'll say that much. 3 copies of Dispel, a Keranos Scout of the Storms, a Hercule's Recall, 2 copies of Engineered Explosives, a Vandal Blast, a Slaughter Games, a Slaughter Pact, a 4th copy of Kolaghan's Command, a Now Spellbomb, a Terminate, a Liliana the Veil, and an Olivia Voldarin. The anti-artifact cards here are going to be great for him. The Vandal Blast, the 2 copies of Engineered Explosive, the Hercule's Recall. The Terminate's going to be very good for him as well. He has some less efficient anti-creature measures here, like Liliana the Veil and Olivia Voldarin. Typically not great against Affinity, but if you just want to load up on as much removal as possible, Adrian can go down that road as well.
For DeMars, he's got a Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Back to Nature, 2 Ghost Quarter, a Dismember. Oh, baby, he's got the grid.
Okay.
2 of the Gear Pile Aether Grids, 2 Whip Flares, a Spell Skite, 2 Ancient Grudge, and then 2 copies of Torpor Orb. Now, for this particular game that we just watched, I think sideboarding might be a little tough for DeMars because he didn't really see too much.
I think he just assumes Adrian's playing some sort of Grixis control deck. The only odd card that he saw in Game 1 was the Miko Koro.
Sure.
Everything else just looked like regular Grixis control cards. I think he'll sideboard accordingly. I think the extra copy of Spellskite is fine for this matchup. Adrian's going to have Lightning Bolts and other damage-based removal spells. And I don't know about the Aether Grid. This doesn't necessarily feel like an Aether Grid matchup to me because attacking Adrian's just fine. And if Adrian's winning the game, it's probably by killing everything that DeMars has. That says Grixis is often vulnerable to enchantments. Not easy for them to get off the table, so possibly it brings in that card.
Well, these players will shuffle up here and sideboard for game number 2. While we wait, we will talk about SCG Game Night, the very popular promotion. Furious George has been retired. August is over, but we've got our friend Polly the Kraken.
Yes, and available this month. Stores can run Game Night any way they want. They can run it sanctioned or unsanctioned, any format. Just have a consistent schedule, have the players showing up to your store for some fun and friendly magic. This is a September kit. Too late to get signed up for this. We're in the middle of the month here. Also too late to get signed up for October. Hopefully you've already done that. We have the October hit pin here of the Hippo. If you're looking to get signed up for November, which I believe we're about to make our debut.
Bang.
The Otter, look at that. Head over to StarCityGames.com/game night for more information or contact your Star City Games organized play representative.
So that fish there in between the otter, is that thing about to die, or how does this work?
No, they're hanging out.
Just a little party?
They look like they're hanging out.
Okay, fair enough. Friendly fun.
Yeah.
No beatdowns. Okay, that's important.
I mean, the fish looks, I would say, apprehensive, but that's a pretty common look for fish, so I wouldn't necessarily read into that.
Twitter, our viewers at home, it's time for you to interact. Hashtag SCGCIN at SCG Live as well. We need a name for the otter.
Otto. Don't bother.
You're okay. You're not even gonna
Don't bother.
You're not even gonna let him jump in.
Otto.
It's just Otto the Otter. All right. Well, it has been done.
Sorry, Twitter. I already came up with the best possible answer.
Otto the Otter.
It's not even 11 o'clock.
All right. Just firing away on all cylinders.
Yeah, already. Don't even waste your time.
Great. Please do not interact with us. Just shut your computer off.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to have a competition for the second best name, hop onto Twitter right now, hashtag SCGCIN for your tweets. You can do that.
But it won't be first.
Yeah.
It won't be the best name. Okay.
You're playing for the silver medal.
Okay, that's
already decided.
That's depressing. That no one can beat. No one can beat Otto the Otter. That's really that's tough to watch right there. Though it sounds like you've got some experience in the naming animals business.
Yep.
This much is clear.
Yep.
You had Otto the Otter just ready.
And guess what? I had not seen that pin before we got up.
I know.
That was my first time.
So that was very impressive just to have that ready.
Yep.
Well, I guess when our December promo comes up, now you've set yourself up for a road to disaster because now you're getting arrogant. So now
not being arrogant. The Otter is just one where I had one ready to go.
Now when December comes, I expect you to just fire off a name.
Okay.
And I already know what the December promo is.
Okay, I do not.
But I'm not going to tell you until next month. But you better come ready.
Something that is helpful for Adrian in this matchup here is the fact that he's not playing with any counter spells. His deck's very proactive. A lot of that is a function of having Waste Not. He's tapping out a lot. He's playing with a lot of removal spells. Counters are pretty bad against Affinity as a rule. The only exception to that rule is Spell Snare. Spell Snare, very good against Affinity. Critical cards are all 2 mana. And if people are playing with Hangerback Walker, that makes Spell Snare that much better.
Inquisition of Kozilek here. You'll take a look at Brian's hand. He's got a Darksteel Citadel, a Mountain, an Inkmoth Nexus, Memnite, Signal Pest, and Springleaf Drum. This is the ugly half of it.
Classic.
Yeah.
All set up. A sandwich, all condiments, no meat.
The best kind.
This is all mustard and ketchup right now in DeMars' hand.
I don't know what kind of sandwiches you're eating.
Needs to get something with some substance here.
I don't want any ketchup on my sandwich. I think, actually, this Inquisition's horrible because there's just no card you really want to take. He's got his colored mana, assuming that he's not playing Thoughtcast with the Mountain. So probably Signal Pest, maybe Memnite because it's free.
The question for Sullivan's side is, what are the draw steps that are most problematic or lead to the most explosive opening? And it's possible that's just Memnite with that hand.
There's Inkmoth. Here comes Drum.
Certainly can't take the Drum. DeMars is good on mana. He even has the Mountain, so you know colored mana is not going to be an issue.
Yep. The draw for the turn was Ornithopter, which allows DeMars to play Signal Pest. So
busted.
Not a bad turn. He left with 2 lands in hand. Sullivan does know that. Now he can move forward accordingly. So we'll see what Adrian can do, because DeMars' draw is not particularly good just yet. But it looks like all he can do is play a Blood Crypt tapped. Maybe another discard spell. He does have a copy of Funeral Charm in hand.
I think Sullivan may be hoping that DeMars fires up the old Nexus.
Snag that one.
Good to hit with Funeral Charm. Probably not on DeMars' radar also.
That's true. DeMars going to tap 2. That might be a better Funeral Charm target. Signal Pest wants to attack. Well, Adrian's just going to take that down. So clearly that means he has another removal spell.
Yeah. No way you're taking down the Signal Pest there and leaving DeMars with an unchecked Steel Overseer.
Yep, another Funeral Charm. I'll take care of Steel Overseer. Here's Nurborg, pass the turn back.
It's no Lightning Bolt, but in this matchup, Funeral Charm is going to be a 1-mana removal spell a good percentage of the time, and all Adrian wants is as much of that as possible.
Just kill stuff.
Yep.
Here comes Inkmoth Nexus. 1 Infect has been dealt, 9 to go. A Mountain, a Signal Pest. DeMars is empty-handed looking for big draws. Sullivan drew a copy of Snapcaster Mage, but you can tell the problem. He has no blue mana. DeMars looks like he may have drawn a good one here. He's tapping 2 mana. That's the definition of a good one.
Adrian is still in fine shape here if he finds blue mana next turn with the copies of Snapcaster Mage he has in his hand. But it's got to be next turn.
Yeah.
He does not have that much more room to wait here because DeMars' clock has gone from very little to explosive just with that one draw.
Cranial Plating will be equipped on an Ornithopter. Both creatures will attack. You'll get a Battlecry trigger there from the Signal Pest. So Thopter attacking for a pretty healthy amount here. Looks like it'll be attacking for 6. You do an artifact count, you add in the Battlecry from the Signal Pest. 5 artifacts plus 1, that should be 6. Sullivan goes down to 14. A Swamp is the draw. Not particularly helpful, though Olivia Valderin could be quite good if Adrian gets on tap with it.
Well, the big thing now, what I like for this draw from Adrian's side of the table is he can block the Ornithopter, and then if he draws blue mana, he has Snapcaster Mage plus multiple Funeral Charms in the graveyard, and DeMars only has 1 toughness action in play.
Yep.
Adrian may not have the luxury here of saying no blocks if the Cranial Plating stays on the Ornithopter. Just might be too much damage.
DeMars' draw for the turn, he put it directly onto the battlefield. It was Mox Opal. Now, that may not seem like much, but it does matter a little bit. Reasons for that: 1, it's an artifact for Cranial Plating. 2, it's a second black mana if he'd like to be able to move around that Cranial Plating at instant speed, since he does have a Springleaf Drum out there as well, so he can get a little bit tricky with that now. Doesn't have a ton of creatures on the battlefield to get really tricky because, again, one of the black mana involves Springleaf Drum.
Yeah.
So he can't do anything too crazy, it appears. But it is definitely something that Adrian needs to be cognizant of moving forward. Inkmoth Nexus will be activated. We'll see how DeMars wants to attack this turn. 7 artifacts right now. He's going to attack with everybody. Signal Pass will give you a Battlecry trigger. And right now, that Inkmoth Nexus is lethal. You see Adrian's going to count out the artifacts. So there's 7 on the battlefield right now because Nexus is active. So that cranial plating is +7. Nexus has a base power of 1, so that's 8. And
Got
the Signal
Signal
Pass
Pass.
is going to give you a battle cry trigger, so that's 9. So Brian's actually made a beautiful attack here in which Olivia Valderin, which can be very powerful, is actually a lethal attacker right now.
And this does a lot of damage to Adrian's lines down in the future, even if he draws blue mana, because now he has to handle Ornithopter plus cranial plating, and his graveyard is not helpful right now. He's only got Funeral Charms. Funeral Charms is very good at pinning down the 1 type of stuff, but not the 2 types of stuff.
Now, if he draws something like a Kolaghan's Command, he's in pretty good shape, and I think that may have been his draw step.
All right, well, that's the best draw in the deck. Better than blue mana.
Absolutely.
And now it means if he draws blue mana, he has access to Snapcaster Mage on Kolaghan's Command, which is a much different animal than Snapcaster Mage on Funeral Charm.
And you saw Adrian take care of cranial plating and the Signal Pass. Now, the big question there is that the best use of Kolaghan's Command in that spot? I don't think it's a bad use per se, but would you prefer that, or do you prefer maybe in the draw step make you discard and then kill your cranial plating? Kind of tough to say, I think.
I think at this point, it just makes sense for Adrian to kill as much of the pressure as possible. It reduces DeMars' clock to 0 in play.
Sure.
In a spot where if Adrian does find blue mana, his hand becomes very, very good. So I don't mind that conservative approach.
Both these players playing a little bit of draw go right now. DeMars isn't drawing very much. He's got a Galvanic Blast in hand, but a couple of lands. Sullivan, he is still looking for blue mana. He just keeps drawing and passing. Mox will pull the draw here for Brian. This is rather embarrassing between the two. Sullivan knocks the top of his deck. I don't think he found anything there either.
It's another copy of Kolaghan's Command.
Okay, that'll work.
He's got Funeral Charm in hand. He's got plenty of good cards for the matchup. He's just missing blue mana to be able to really pull ahead.
Now it looks like he's discarding. Well, Jace Vryn's Prodigy, not so much right now.
Another card that's pretty good with Kolaghan's Command in the graveyard.
Very true. A Glimmer Void there for DeMars. Colors of Mana, not an issue for Brian. He just doesn't have any action. Sullivan, we did it.
Okay, now it gets really good.
Yeah.
Adrian had a healthy life total and all sorts of resources to work with.
He's going to go down to 12 from sacrificing the Polluted Delta. We'll see if he wants maybe to take the basic island approach. He will. Now his deck is online. Now he can do things that matter. We already know about Snapcaster Mage plus Kolaghan's Command. Curious what route he wants to go. Looks like he's just going to Snapcast a discard spell and Inquisition of Kozilek. Wants to see what the heck Brian is up to over here.
Yeah, Brian's been saying go here for a while. Wants to know what's going on. Probably nothing in his hand. Sometimes Affinity lists do have counter spells in the sideboard.
Yep. Galvanic Blast goes upstairs. Sullivan down to 8. He'll make him discard Mox Opal, Springleaf Drum, and a land left in hand. We'll head back to Mars' way. Mars will draw a card. It's another copy of Ornithopter.
Nice.
This is the catch-up part again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Here comes Snapcaster Mage. Adrian Sullivan starting to go on the offensive now.
And Adrian's hand is just loaded.
He's got a lot of answers to things.
He is at risk of getting burned out.
Yeah,
he's at 8.
Galvanic Blast.
His deck doesn't really gain life or counter things, so running Galvanic Blast could be problematic, but I don't think DeMars is going to have any luck doing anything in this game with creatures going forward. That door is shut.
Snapcaster Mage going to rebuy Kolaghan's Command. Kolaghan's Command will deal 2 damage to the Ornithopter and make DeMars discard a card. Glimmer Void will bite the dust. Sullivan will untap 2 Snappies on the battlefield. Taking a draw step now. It'll be time to head into the red zone here in just a moment. That's what I'll do. Come across here for 4. DeMars down to 14. DeMars will take a draw. Another copy of Inkmoth Nexus. Looks like he's going to fire up the first. He's got a long way to go down in the Infect route, however.
It wouldn't surprise me at this point if Adrian's hand is literally 7 removal spells.
I wouldn't be surprised either. Well, we're going to see the first one, Kolaghan's Command. Kill that, make you discard. Going to grind him all the way down. There goes the Springleaf Drum. These sort of exchanges, obviously where Sullivan wants to be at. Ornithopter, Inkmoth Nexus, pass the turn back to Mars is out of cards. And if you're Adrian, once you see your opponent out of cards, you got to be feeling great.
Yeah, you can see his hand. I mean, it's still Funeral Charm, Lightning Bolt, Engineered Explosives.
You mentioned that he came ready for the matchup.
his sideboard has a lot of anti-affinity measures specifically. Now, he has a 4th copy of Kolgon's Command. You can bring that in a variety of matchups, but he has Vandal Blast and Hurkyl's Recall in his sideboard. That's an acknowledgement that Game 1, his affinity matchup is not very good. The waste not part of his deck's too slow, but post-board, he just becomes a very lean Grixis control deck.
Now he's ready to turn up the heat.
Lava Claw reaches.
Oh, yeah.
Probably the least played of the 5 of that cycle.
I think maybe I was going to say maybe a tie with Stern Wildwood, but that's probably not true.
I don't think so.
I think Wildwood saw more play.
Yep. I would argue Lava Claw reaches is the least powerful of the 5.
I would agree. But it's what he's working with. Engineer Explosives is going to blow for 0, get Ornithopter out of here. Same with the Mox Opal. You saw DeMars play a Blink Moth Nexus for the turn, so he's got 2 Nexuses in those lands, a Blinky and an Inky. Might see Sullivan just fire off a lightning bolt upstairs. Yeah, he's looking to get this over with now. Is DeMars going to go down to 7?
Now DeMars has to chump block the Lava Claw reaches.
Sure. We certainly expected to be saying that this morning.
Every time we have Adrian on camera, I mean that you expect the unexpected.
That's true. Adrian dropped his hand there. He'll pick these cards up. Little accident. Looks like DeMars has decided he's got to do some blocking now. He'll fire up Ink Moth. Hoping to get the opportunity to block. Adrian does have a copy of Funeral Charm in hand, but might not be the best time to fire that off.
Yep. So I think it's just fine for Adrian to pass here. If he's got a spell like Terminate, he can cast it.
And that's exactly what he's going to do there. So Terminate is done. Now here is Blink Moth. Now that one's summoning sick. That's what Adrian's asking. So he's asking, can you actually pump it? The answer is no, because it's summoning sick creatures. So the other line of text not going to work. Snapcaster Mage, Lightning Bolt. Let's play a 3rd game, shall we? As Adrian Sullivan does tie things up here against Brian DeMars. Grixis Waste Not, Affinity getting ready for game number 3. We saw some of the inconsistencies with Adrian's deck, but he was able to draw out of it and get that game.
And you saw from DeMars' side of the table, you know, Affinity is a deck with a lot of setup, and you get hands where there's one payoff card. It can be Arcbound Ravager, it can be Cranial Plating. Now it can be Hanger Back Walker as well in certain spots. But without having a lot of those cards, if they're all chewed up, the leftovers from Affinity are rarely good enough to win games, even against an opponent who is missing one of their colors of mana for the first 7 or 8 turns of the game.
These players will shuffle up here for game number 3. That'll be underway in just a moment. Brian DeMars will be on the play. We will very quickly talk about the Star City Games YouTube page, where you can watch the replays of this match, the entire Open, and many other things.
Yeah, youtube.com/Star City Games is the page you want to go to. You can subscribe right now for free. A lot of content goes up on that page, including Versus Series videos, premium archives, Open Series archives, and content that's exclusive to the YouTube page, like unboxing. So again, youtube.com/Star City Games. Become a subscriber today. It is free, and you will be updated via email whenever new content goes on to the page.
First use of the F word this morning.
We're going to say it a lot.
Beautiful.
Free.
It is free. We get ready here for game number 3 between DeMars and Sullivan. Checking in on Twitter. A couple of updates here on the Otter, including Potter. Still 2nd place there.
If that. Keep going.
Wow, that's tough. And we have this one. This one's a bit of a stretch here. Ottermus Prime. Yeah. Just a little bit of a stretch there. I can appreciate the effort, but Ottermus Prime is that's not going to play.
No, that's not playing.
Otto is still in the lead.
Yeah.
No, Potter's not bad.
Yeah, Potter's not bad.
Potter's not bad.
Potter the Otter, were it not for Otto being by a mile the best one,
yeah,
it's possible Potter might have been what we went with.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good suggestion.
DeMars will take a look at his opening hand. He's mulliganing very quickly.
And mulligans are very, very painful for him in this matchup because Adrian's plan post-board is just removal, removal, removal. DeMars needs every piece of action, especially, you know, he's going to get some dead weight in his draws, most likely. He's going to have redundant mana. He's going to have low impact 0 and 1 mana creatures. And so these mulligans are very painful.
Sullivan did keep his 7. So DeMars will take a look at 6. There's a hanger back walker in there at least. Yeah, I think he may have drawn one too many. So this might be a forced mulligan. We'll see what the ruling is here in this instance. A little bit of a mistake there from Brian. So get a judge on over here. See exactly what does happen. He might just have to shuffle. Yeah, not too sure. Oh, okay. So they make you get rid of a random card, I guess.
Yeah, this is different. Back in when I was playing competitively, and actually up until very recently, if you drew one card too many, it was just a forced mulligan.
Sure.
Now they've changed the rules.
So this is a clean and easy fix.
Yep.
Yeah, and what it is, it's just it's a forced mulligan of 5.
Okay.
So you shuffle a card back at random of the 6 cards of the cards that he had, and
all
it's
right,
a forced mulligan
gotcha.
of 5.
Okay.
And now things get very hard because now here's a Vandal Blast. Wow. So now DeMars with just an Ornithopter. Water Grave on the battlefield untapped. Here's a Jace Vryn's Prodigy. We could have a runaway here very quickly with Jace.
Yeah, especially with Adrian just being flush with 1 mana removal to flash back here.
Yep. Here's a Mox Opal. Yeah, he's able to activate Blinkmoth Nexus. It's a roundabout way to turning on the Opal. You activate Blinkmoth Nexus, that gives him Metalcraft 3 artifacts, and he can Galvanic Blast the Jace. So Brian has dealt with that issue.
And it looks like Adrian has also brought in his copy of Liliana the Veil, along with the Olivia Voldaren. Wasn't sure if these cards were going to come in. They're not the best against Affinity, but it wouldn't surprise me if Adrian has completely bailed on the Waste Not element of his deck.
Yeah.
4 Waste Not, 4 Burning Inquiry, probably all gone.
Not good for this matchup. Bloodstained Mire the land here for Sullivan. He'll sacrifice that.
So now I suppose the rule is it's a forced mulligan, but of the cards you had already drawn,
sure,
rather than just drawing up an entirely new hand.
Here's Tassiger. Delve away those 3 cards in the graveyard. 3 mana, 4/5 in the house. Looking to close pretty quick. And Brian DeMars is going to concede the game. So Adrian Sullivan does win this match over Brian DeMars, 2-1. Grixis Waste Not will take care of Affinity. And Adrian Sullivan's off to a great start today.
I think his matchup game 1 is quite poor, and the Waste Not Burning Inquiry element of his deck is just going to be way too slow. But post board, he gets to bail up all of that stuff. He gets to bring in Hurkyl's Recall, Engineer Explosive, Vandal Blast, Terminate, Kolagon's Command, Liliana the Veil, Olivia Voldaren. I'm actually counting here 4, 5. That's exactly 8 cards.
Okay.
It would not surprise me if that's on purpose.
Pretty
he
clean
wanted
swap.
to have